All right, well, we're back here with Tyler Tringas. We just had a previous conversation talking all about Company Fund, some of the history, some of the learnings. That was a great episode. But now, let's talk a little bit about Founder Summit. It's sort of like the other. I don't know if you think of it as like I know it's sort of like put on by Company Fund, but like, is it like a separate business, separate entity? It does have its own website and everything. So I just attended Founder Summit in Asheville, North Carolina. I know you guys have put it on in Mexico City in the past. Tell us about it. What is Founder Summit?
Yeah, so Founder Summit is a live event series at this point. It started as basically me just trying to pull together a remote community into some sort of physical location. So our fund is completely remote. The team is remote. The mentor group is remote. The portfolio is remote. And like many remote companies, you've sort of figured out that there is really a ton of value in FaceTime. So a lot of remote first companies have this idea of a team retreat. Pull people from all over the world. You put them together, face to face for a little while, and there's a ton of value in that. And I wanted to create the same effect for our community. And so I was living in Mexico City at the time, and I said, okay, Mexico City is great. I'm going to just, open invite, bring a bunch of people from our portfolio, our investors, and the team all in one place. And as we were starting to do that, we realized this is already kind of like the kernel of a really cool event. It was going to be like, I think 40 or 50 people from inside the community. And I thought, there are a lot of people who I think just like the vibe of Calm Company Fund, right? They like the idea of building a calm company, but they don't fit into one of those two very narrow funnels, which is, can you invest in our fund or can we invest in your company, right? There's a lot of people that for various reasons might be building a calm company that just doesn't fit into either of those. And we never really had a way to bring those folks into the community, right? People would reach out to me and just say, I love what you're doing. I'm running this like profitable business, blah, blah, blah. How can I get involved? And I was like, I don't know. Like, if you can't fit into one of these buckets, then we don't have anything for you. Sign up for the newsletter, I guess. And so this kind of filled that role. It said, okay, we're already bringing together a bunch of great entrepreneurs. Let's open it up and let this other category of folks who are not affiliated with us also join, hang out, meet other founders, and just generally kind of build and strengthen the community. And then there's some principles behind that, but I can talk about that. But
yeah, we can talk about just how awesome and how fun it is to
okay.
attend Founder Summit. But before we get into that, just strategically, like I love this idea of investing time and resources in marketing projects that are just awesome and fun to do anyway. Like it's got to be worth doing on its own, and it has the added benefit of bringing the core community together, bringing people who might not necessarily be the right fit, as you said, for both of your funnels, but they are very much the type of people who can go and talk about Company Fund to folks who it might make sense for, or it might make sense to them sometime down the road. It just helps with the brand and just sort of goodwill and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, just like the idea of like a top of funnel asset, if you will, as a conference that happens to be a fun thing that should happen anyway. I love that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I think it's definitely a long game in terms of, the value it will ultimately drive for the company. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs are not actually like economic maximizers in the sense that they don't like survey the landscape of all possible opportunities of ways to spend their time and try to pick the like thing that's going to generate the most dollars. A lot of times it's just like you're just freaking frustrated with something and you just have to go and fix it. And that's probably like a big driver of Founder Summit. It was just like I went to a lot of conferences in my life. Actually, we were talking on the last show about my previous job working in kind of clean tech advisory. I went to a ton of conferences for that job, and then later went to some conferences as an entrepreneur, but fewer. And I always found them just incredibly frustrating because it's like we all fly from all over the world to this location to sit and stare at someone doing a PowerPoint presentation that 100% would be better delivered as a podcast episode that I could listen to, while I'm running on the treadmill. Like, what are we doing here? It was like so frustrating. And then you'd meet all these great people in the 5-minute coffee break before you get like hushed and pushed back into the, to the thing. So at some point a couple years ago, I started going to conferences and I just completely ignored the talks. I would just exclusively like set up coffee meetings and just only go and try to hang out with the people who were there. And so that's what like kind of got that thing in the back of my mind that was like, what if we built an entire event around around facilitating the people who flew all the way here to meet each other and like form connections and build relationships. And so that's kind of the thing, is I just can't not do it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's exactly the reason why there's just a small handful of conferences, entrepreneur conferences that I go to every year. And the only reason I go is to hang out with friends that, and we get together at those, and then I get to meet up and form new relationships. That was one of my goals in attending Founder Summit this year as a first-time attendee for me. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm only about 1 year into being a funded startup through Com Company Fund. And so I saw this as an opportunity to, make more connections and get a little bit more connected within the Com community, which, I've been more connected in like other communities. This one made a lot of sense. And it really is the perfect format for that. And I love the idea of not only like the activity based and like this one was like a camp edition, so there were like campfires, there was hiking, it was a lot of fun. But like I just love the idea of like a small conference. I've been co-running this thing that we call Big Snow Tiny Comp for going on 10 years now. Where me and only like 12 other founders, we get together in a house and go skiing and snowboarding in Vermont and Colorado, which has been awesome because it's like a fun activity, and we talk business, and it's like small group. I've been to a couple others where like 40 or 50, and this was really put on really well. One thing that I kept commenting to everyone while I was there, I think you guys did a really great job of not only planning like a really unique event with activities and everything, but the curation of the attendees. Right? So every single person that I met and spoke to at Founder Summit, I was like, wow, they're working on something really interesting. They're not new at this. They're experienced. I relate to so many people here. There are so many different people. Like, there's like a wide range of backgrounds and diversity and everything. I've seen that kind of fall short at other conferences where it's like, there's like the core group that are really great, and then you have a bunch of like, I don't know whether it's like new people or maybe people just trying to sell their services there while they're here. Can you talk a bit about that? Like, how did you like work out like the application process and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's basically boils down to a combination of, how can I put this? Like magnets and filters, right? So the one hand, you need to have these magnets. You need to have stuff that is going to attract interesting people, right? And then you need to have ways that filter out the other people that you don't want there. So the magnets would always be like the setting. For example, the first one was in Mexico City. It's a beautiful city. It was on a lot of people's kind of to-do list to go and visit there. And then we blew it out. Like, we threw a heck of a party in Mexico City and kind of went fully all out. So a lot of folks knew, okay, like, this is going to be a really fun experience with kind of good food, good vibes. Even if I hate everyone there, it's probably still going to be like a fun time, right? That's the kind of bar you want to set. And then you want to have filters where either, you kind of implicitly filter out folks. So one of those is just kind of holding them in kind of off the beaten path places, right? So that's a filter. The fact that we did it in Asheville, North Carolina and Mexico City and not, New York or Dallas or something like that, where it's convenient for people. It's actually inconvenient, right? So that sets up a filter for people who are feeling a little more adventurous right now. And then the other thing is just we did have we call it's open application, invite only. So the process is anybody could apply to come to the conference. There you didn't need some sort of secret handshake or anything like that. And then we kind of just selectively as a team went through and tried to kind of curate the folks from that. I honestly okay, yes, we've put a lot of thought into it, but also we've just been very, very lucky that whatever we've put out there in terms of just the frequency that we're sort of putting out there is just resonating with the right folks. I think a lot about man, I'm going to screw up this quote, but it's a really good one. It's like the best thing to do on the internet is you're tapping a tuning fork and seeing who resonates.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? Like that's, and so I think we've done a pretty good job of tapping the tuning fork, and then we're just gotten lucky that it's resonating with a lot of really interesting people.
For sure.
Yeah.
I really just find it hard to buy into the value prop of most conferences, right? I gotta get a flight, I gotta get a hotel and go out there, and then I gotta spend 3 days at this place. I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy myself. But you read and you see all the photos and everything from Founder Summit and from both years. It's how can I not go to it's this is gonna be awesome no matter what. And you guys did put on a pretty well structured event where there were multiple activities and there were talks. It wasn't this is only just conversations. Of course, there was a ton of that and parties and activities and hiking and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there were talks. There were some were sort of organized as fireside chats. Some were a little bit more larger group, speaker. But you can sort of pick and choose. I mean, one and they were all a really interesting set of topics and speakers. The one, and I was speaking to you at the event about this, the one that really stood out to me, I was sort of surprised at it, but it was my favorite one, was the husband and wife restaurant owner duo.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have a really, really successful string of Indian restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of told their story, the startup story, the growth, and how they have this it was quite a story. And for a room full of software entrepreneurs to hear from restaurant owners, it was just it was just sort of eye opening and inspiring. And not that I necessarily related to a lot of the steps that they took in their journey, but it's just such a breath of fresh air to go from the typical startup podcasts and our Twitter circles and all that stuff to now I'm sitting, by a fire in Asheville, North Carolina, hearing from two really successful restaurant owners. It's just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they were fantastic as the founders of the Chai Pani restaurant group. And they were super cool. I mean, we have a couple of I think we're still building the principles here, but the ones that we have now in terms of how we think about talks is the first one is that it's not about star power. So one of the problems you have is you need to attract thousands of people to come to a crappy conference center in a boring city that they've been to a million times. You got to have these big flashy keynote speakers that they're going to resonate with. So we kind of leave that out. The second thing is that the talks are there not to dominate the conversation, but to inspire the conversation, right? So it's what is going to that's how we think of what talk should happen is we think about after the talk, what kind of conversations is that going to spark among the attendees? And then the last one is basically I say talk about the stuff we're not talking about. So it's really interesting to dig in with Molly and Marwan about, they are 12 years in to running a now very successful business as a husband and wife couple, husband and wife, co-founders basically. And so it was really cool to sort of unpack that with them, because that's kind of something that we have a lot of, especially in this community, a lot of husband and wife or just, spouse co-founders. And I think we don't talk a lot about the challenges and opportunities that presents. So that's why I was really excited to talk to them about that. So
yeah, for sure. So before we wrap up here, I'm sure Founder Summit is going to be happening again. Are there plans in the works for 2023? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah. Well, we'll just talk about it. So we're going to do more. Yeah, basically. The first two went really well.
You're going to do multiple events.
Yeah, we're going to do quite a few next year.
Oh, nice.
So we'll do some in different locations. Some will be a little smaller. Some might be bigger. We're going to do some experimentation there, but basically, after the second one of these, and we had just a huge percentage of the people at the event say this was like the best event they'd ever been to, twice in a row. One time could be a fluke, but 2 for 2, I feel like that's product market fit. That's the universe telling us we need to keep running with this. So we're planning to really double down on it next year. So
nice.
Stay tuned.
I really like the idea of multiple smaller events. Because like there a number of things, whether it's like travel, location, timing of the year, who knows what might come up. But if there are like multiple opportunities to even attend multiple times throughout the year, and that's the other thing is like with these small conferences, I've been doing the ski and snowboarded one where I go every single year.
Yeah.
And I've been to a couple of other small ones where I've been back like 3 years, and it's that repeat experience with people where you start to really develop these relationships.
Yep.
And you just kind of show up, you land, you come to this really cool location, and you dive right in. How are things going since the last time we hung out? It's like the first time you meet people, it's still sort of that like surface level. What do you do? Tell me about your business. What are you all about? And then once you sort of see the same people multiple years in a row. And this is, for folks listening who are not well connected in this industry, there is really something. I think it's a really important practice to get out there. Like Slack
Totally.
groups and Twitter are not enough.
Yeah.
And I mean, because I've been self-employed for more than 13 years now, but I didn't start attending conferences in person until at least 5 years into that. And that's when things started getting interesting in my career. Businesses, network, friendships and advisors, and like just going in person and developing these relationships. It takes it to a whole other level, and finding because I think that with these events, they really form a community. They form these like return attendees, right? So
I totally agree. Yeah, there's something magic about actual in-person, face-to-face conversations with folks. Something very there's a real leveling, right? Like you can have a conversation with someone that it would be incredibly hard to like cold DM them on Twitter and get on their calendar to have a Zoom, but you're at this conference together, and so you have a chat, and like what we do and what quite a few other conferences do is which I like is not kind of like putting the speakers, tucked away in a secret green room, which
Right.
you do have at some like really big conferences, which is very frustrating to me. But that approach of just like the speakers and the people who you think of as maybe like your entrepreneur heroes are also just chilling out at the happy hour and happy to chat with you. So yeah, I totally agree. It's great.
For sure. Well, I'm looking forward to more of it next year. Tyler, we covered a lot of ground in these 2 episodes. So thanks for doing it. And we will get everything linked up in the show notes as always.
Awesome. This was great, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.